You know, we're kind of losing a lot of people's interest in the Model 3.
Yeah, it's because we're all waiting for Project Highland to get unveiled.
Don't talk about that. There's no Project Highland. But what can we do to make the Model 3 hypothetically more desirable?
Well, could you consider lowering the price?
Oh yeah, we got margin. We could lower the price.
And maybe you could increase the range?
We could do a long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3 that would have industry-leading efficiency and longer range than any existing Model 3 would have.
Wow, okay, that sounds great. Can we buy it?
Yeah, as long as you live in the United Kingdom and you buy 1,000 of them at once.
What?
Well, it's just for fleet buyers, obviously.
Okay,
Just let me know when I can buy that. No.
ugh, gosh.
Alright, so this by far is probably, like, the most fascinating thing going on at Tesla right now, at least in terms of, like, models that are potentially rumored to come out. I mean, honestly, there's already kind of a lot of hype surrounding the Project Highland Model 3 leak and everything, but this is not a source, okay? This is not Reuters dropping a leak or anything. This is not a employee that's trying to get fired by posting pictures they're not supposed to post or anything. No, this is a senior manager at Tesla on their LinkedIn page that has quietly announced a new trim of the Model 3 just available for a very, very niche market, but I think there's a lot of speculation to be done here, which is why I'm making a video on it, and if you don't like speculation, don't watch this channel, but Karen is her name, actually announced that Tesla is going to be bringing back the rear-wheel drive long-range Model 3, specifically just for the United Kingdom and for fleet buyers, but it does start at 47,000 pounds, which is 4,000 pounds less than the dual-motor long-range, and yet it gets more range out of it. Now, the confusing part steps in because we don't have an EPA testing cycle of the range of this new Model 3 trim. We only have the less reliable, less accurate WLTP standard that they use in Europe, and she claims that this can get 394 miles of range with that standard, but that standard always results in EVs getting way higher range than they really do, and most people would admit that you typically don't even get your EPA estimated range, but as far as range testing cycles go, EPA tends to be the most accurate. So I've been cross-comparing a lot of Model 3 trims now using that WLTP standard versus the EPA, and it's not linear. It's not like the same range variation difference between the trims. So, like, they claim that that LFP rear-wheel drive Model 3, like the one that I'm driving, gets 305 miles on a charge, whereas in the US it's rated for 272 miles. So there's like a difference of 33 miles of range there. But then when it comes to the dual motor long range option, they say that gets 374 miles of range, whereas the EPA states 358. So it's less than 20 miles of range difference. So if we're just going for an average here, assuming that the EPA typically results in 20 or 25 miles of less range than what the WLTP standard allows for, then we're still talking here about like a 370 mile range version of the Model 3, which definitely gets me excited because there's never been a Model 3 with range that good, even though Tesla used to make a long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3, but that was before the heat pump and more efficiency gains that they figured out with powertrain technology. And personally, having driven the slowest Tesla available, I think the Model 3 rear-wheel drive is still plenty fast for most people, and I bet there's a ton of people out there that would love to get this option if they could. Save like $4,000 off the price and get like an extra 20 to 25 miles more range out of it. Heck yeah. But the question remains then, why is Tesla keeping this option so limited? Why are they not letting individual customers buy it? And I have some theories here, and I very well could be wrong, so definitely don't take my word as sacred. But if you were following CATL reports from last year, who is the manufacturer for all of Tesla's lithium iron phosphate batteries as of right now, they said that they had this updated chemistry that they referred to as lithium iron manganese phosphate that still removes a lot of those dirty, expensive materials like nickel and cobalt, but allows for greater energy density than what is currently possible with lithium iron phosphate. And in those previous reports, they said that they were going to start having lithium iron manganese phosphate ready for Teslas at Giga Shanghai at some point in early 2023. Now, as far as we can tell, Tesla has not really changed on the cathode chemistry in any of their vehicles over the past few months, definitely not within 2023. It appears they're just continuing to use 4680s for the all-wheel drive Model Y, 2170s for all the other Model Ys and 3s other than the rear-wheel drive, which uses LFP. But the fact that they've introduced this new option just in the United Kingdom, which inherently is a much smaller market than the rest of Europe, and the United Kingdom gets their Teslas from Giga Shanghai, which is sourcing materials from CATL, that makes me wonder if maybe this is like the test bed and they're just selling to fleet buyers so that individuals can't quite get their hands on these vehicles to find out or do like teardowns and deduct that this might be a different chemistry from different cells, especially if it's an iron-based battery pack that points to the idea of you can have really high range and perhaps still charge it to 100% fairly regularly if it behaves anyway like LFP does. I'm not sure if the manganese mixed in there makes it more prone to degradation at higher states of charge, so maybe they still want you to charge it just to 80%, but there was definitely a lot of discussion about them moving over to that new chemistry, and personally, I just find it very bizarre knowing Tesla, how they like to scale up production and have minimal trim options. They don't like having that many different tiers, and they like recycling existing battery packs, like the Model 3 Long Range and Model 3 Performance have the same battery pack. Same story with the Model Y. Same battery pack in the Long Range S versus the Plaid S. So Tesla typically doesn't get like very customizable with battery packs and powertrains. So it's weird to me that Giga Shanghai is going to be building just this one offshoot of, yeah, actually here's a long range rear wheel drive, but we're only gonna allow that for fleet buyers in the UK? I feel like this is probably a test bed or something. They want real world data on these vehicles and they want to start building them and start shipping them, but probably not give away too much all at once. And of course there would be massive Osborning effects and a lot of people canceling their orders or resale values tanking if they just suddenly launched this option on the configurator. So I can understand why they don't want to just open this trim up to the public right away, but it does set a lot of precedent for, I think, what the future of this trim could be. And typically there's all kinds of changes that are made first in Giga Shanghai, and then a few months down the road they eventually find their way into the United States market. So fingers crossed here, but how amazing would it be if by next year we see a revival of the rear-wheel drive Model 3 with the long-range battery pack that enables it to go 360, 370 miles on a charge, and it costs way less than $50,000. Maybe the downside to launching that in the United States is that it would not qualify for the federal tax credit because it would likely require an imported battery pack, at least for now. We're probably a couple of years out before Tesla and CATL or whoever is able to build lithium iron phosphate or lithium iron manganese phosphate battery packs within the United States, so maybe it doesn't make so much sense to launch that vehicle here. But I'm just still so curious, like, do you really think they're just limiting it to one country, one demographic, just for fleet buyers, and they're gonna have a whole separate dedicated assembly line at Giga Shanghai just for that trim? Or do you think this is them like testing out something different, trying to see how it performs, trying to get real world data? And also, why do fleet buyers need the highest range Model 3, right? Like, I feel like most companies that are buying them in bulk are more likely to buy the lower range options because people are usually just renting them when they're visiting a city for a while, or if they're using them for maintenance vehicles to like drive around the country and check up on facilities or customers or whatever. Do they really care about having to stop for a few extra minutes with a lower range vehicle, or do they just want the lowest possible entry price? Why wouldn't they just get a Model 3 rear-wheel drive? I'd love to hear your guys' theories on this, but I am shocked that there's not more people speculating on what the future implications of this trim may be, because this is definitely the trim that I think most people wanted to buy back when it was available in 2018, and Tesla just realized, well, it's not profitable. Like, we can't keep selling this because the margins aren't good enough. But who knows? Maybe if Giga Shanghai is switching to single-piece castings, or if this is using a BYD Blade battery pack that is structural, maybe there's some weight savings there, and that allows them to pack in a bigger battery pack and just have one motor so that you can charge less for it and still have a good amount of margin with it. What are your guys' theories? I keep circling around this topic all day, and I'm just like, oh man, what could it be? But I'd love to know what your thoughts are down below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. Have an excellent rest of your day.